I would now like to invite the Honorable Ms. Turid Elizabeth Solvang to please address us. She is the founder and CEO of Future Brands, a global expert in corporate governance, former chair of the European Confederation of Directors and Associations, co-founder of the European Women on Board, co-founder and former CEO of the Norwegian Institute of Directors. Ma'am, we look forward to your address.
Thank you very much. And first of all, thank you for inviting me to speak on this timely and hugely important topic. And since my scope of work is corporate boards and leadership, I would like to please allow me to share some of our reflections from the corporate perspective. So the positive effects for business and society of having more women in leadership positions are well documented. And that becomes even more evident in situations that we are facing now, when women seem to be paying an unproportionately higher price, that they should be represented in the decision-making positions. A recent example is how countries with female leaders have responded to the corona crisis. Among other measures, the Norwegian Prime Minister Erna Solberg had the innovative idea of using television to talk directly to our country's children, responding to the kids' questions from across the country and taking time to explain why it was okay to feel scared. It seems so obvious, but honestly, could you imagine Donald or Boris doing just that? And this is surely the time when good leaders stand out, including the corporate leaders. Another example from Norway is the media house Schibsted, that have set up a helpline during the lockdown for employees who are struggling mentally. And yes, the CEO is pleased. But however, long before the virus sent shockwaves through the business and society, global trends such as financial instability, geopolitical unrest, and climate change were deeply affecting the corporate world. And added on this digital disruption and increased scrutiny on the company's role in society, and a different picture was being painted for board of directors and leadership teams, their role, their work, and their composition. And this requires a shift of skills and mindsets among those leading companies that plan to survive in the 21st century. I call it the boardroom revolution. Thus, it is encouraging to observe that a growing number of investors and asset managers are on the move to improve the gender balance among the decision makers in the corporate world. However, progress remains too slow. Women and men worldwide, politicians and regulators, as well as large institutional investors, are getting impatient. The question why is off the table. The critical question to be asked now is how more women can take their seats around the boardroom tables and the top floor in business. What works and who should be in the driver's seat. In Norway, my home country, we chose a radical, much debated, highly controversial, but undoubtedly efficient route, by many dubbed the gender quota law. The amendment to the Public Limited Companies Act that was passed by the Norwegian Parliament a little more than a decade ago require boards of directors of publicly listed companies to comprise minimum 40% of either gender. Similar requirements apply to state-owned companies. And as we all know, legislation works. The Norwegian gender quota law proves well beyond doubt that if the goal is to change the gender composition of boards within a reasonable time frame, quotation followed by sanction is the most efficient instrument. And as a result of the law, Norway has the most gender-balanced board in the world, along with Iceland, which introduced similar legislation later. So I'm pleased to say that in Norway today, the law is generally regarded as uncontroversial. Gender quotas for boards of directors are taken for granted and are just not much of a topic for debate anymore. I'm very fortunate to live in a country like Norway, where equal rights for men and women are taken for granted, where women participate in the workforce on par with men, and where actually female students at universities outnumbered and sometimes outperformed their fellow male students. This clearly and economically empowers us as women, which in turn leads to greater independence and financial security. So I'll keep on pushing for more women in decision-making positions in the corporate world for the benefit of women, business, and society at large. So thank you for letting me participate in this webinar, and I'm looking forward to continue working with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for for what you have shared with us. I think it's a very important point that if you can financially empower women, then not just now during the lockdown, but afterwards also, if people are domestic violence, at least they know that they can stand on their own feet and have a way out. Thank you so much.